It's raining outside. Alex closes his eyes, but he's not sleeping. At 75, he learned that everyone steals, everyone lies, everyone leaves. He left $5,000 on the table. A trap. A final test. He waited. He heard the small steps approaching. She's coming now, he thought. Now she takes the money. But the little girl didn't touch the money. She took off her coat, the only one she had, and put it on him. He is cold, she whispered. And in that instant, the richest man in New York learned what money could never teach him. Like if this touched your soul, it's more than a click. It's a silent hug between those of us who have learned that the most valuable things cannot be bought. Comment on how you think this story will end. And if you haven't subscribed yet, it costs you nothing, but for us it means the entire world. Thank you for being here. The afternoon was falling over New York like a grey sheet. Rain was hitting the leaded glass windows of the mansion with a monotonous, almost hypnotic rhythm. In the second-floor library, surrounded by oak shelves that reached the ceiling, Alex Sullivan remained still in his Italian leather armchair. 75 years of life had carved deep lines into his face. His hands, stained by time, rested on the armrests with a studied stillness. His eyes closed, his breathing slow, deliberately paused. But Alex was not sleeping. He never slept when someone else was in the house. On the side table, next to a crystal glass, half full of Scotch whiskey that he no longer drank, was a manila paper envelope, open, careless, as if someone had left it forgotten by distraction. Inside, 50 $100 bills, perfectly organized, $5,000, a fortune for someone who had nothing, a perfect trap for someone who had everything. Alex had perfected this ritual over decades. Every new employee, every unexpected visitor, every person who entered his world received the same silent test. And each one, without exception, had confirmed what he believed with unbreakable firmness. All people steal when they have the chance, all of them, without exception. The world had taught him that lesson too many times. His business partner, who forged his signature to empty bank accounts. His second wife, who took $500,000 worth of jewelry while he was hospitalized. Even his own brother, who sold the family properties without consulting him, leaving him alone with this empty, cold mansion. Distrust had become his only faithful companion. That Saturday he had made an exception to his rule of not working on weekends. His new employee, Lily, had begged him on the phone with a trembling voice if she could bring her daughter to work. Just this once, only because she had no one to leave her with. Alex had accepted, not out of kindness, out of curiosity. He wanted to see what a poor girl would do when she saw so much money together. From the hallway came the muffled sound of footsteps. Lily was working in the first-floor kitchen, scrubbing the lunch dishes that Alex had barely touched. The smell of lemon detergent rose up the stairs, mixing with the aroma of old paper and waxed wood in the library. Alex waited. His heart beat with a strange, almost anxious rhythm, like a hunter waiting for the deer to enter the clearing. Soon he would know. Soon it would be confirmed once again that humanity was exactly what he had always thought. Corrupt, selfish, predictable. Capítulo 2. Lily and... The weight of despair. Lily Diaz had been working at the Sullivan mansion for 3 weeks. 3 weeks that felt like 3 years. Her hands, reddened by the hot water and cleaning products, trembled slightly as she dried the last porcelain dish. She was 29 years old, but the lines around her eyes spoke of a life that had aged faster than her body. She was petite, with dark skin that contrasted with the grey uniform that Mr. Sullivan demanded of all his staff. Her hair, pulled back in a tight bun, revealed the permanent fatigue of someone who slept 3 or 4 hours a night. A widow for 2 years. Her husband, Tom, had died in a construction accident when a poorly secured beam fell from a scaffold. No insurance, no compensation, nothing but an urn of ashes and a growing debt. Since then, Lily had worked 5 different jobs. She cleaned houses in the morning, ironed clothes in the afternoon, washed dishes at a restaurant at night. But it was never enough. The rent ate up almost all her salary, food the little that was left, and Sophie needed new shoes and books for school, and a coat that wasn't patched 3 times. When she saw the advertisement for a housekeeper at Alex Sullivan's house, she knew it was her last chance. The salary was better than anything she had earned before, enough to, perhaps for the first time in years, breathe. But Mr. Sullivan was not an easy man. Cold, distant, with eyes that seemed to calculate the monetary value of every word, every gesture. He had made it clear from day one that he expected perfection. No mistakes, no excuses, and she could not afford to lose this job. Lily looked towards the living room, where Sophie waited, sitting on the edge of an antique sofa. The girl held her worn backpack against her chest, her eyes large and scared. "Mommy, how much longer?" Sophie whispered. "A little more, my love. Mommy has to finish upstairs." Lily knelt in front of her daughter. She straightened the unruly curls that escaped from the braids she had poorly made that morning, when they had run out of their small apartment in the Queen's neighborhood. "Listen to me carefully, Sophie." Lily's voice was firm but gentle. "I'm going up to clean the gentleman's library. You stay here on this sofa. Don't move, don't touch anything. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mommy. If you need anything, call me quietly, but don't make noise. The gentleman is resting and he cannot wake up upset. If I lose this job—" Lily swallowed, feeling tears threaten to appear. "If I lose it, we won't have money to pay for the house this month." Sophie nodded with a seriousness that did not correspond to her 7 years. Lily kissed her on the forehead, breathing in the sweet smell of her cheap shampoo, and went up the stairs with a heavy heart. She did not know that upstairs, behind closed eyes, someone was waiting for exactly that. A chance to prove, once again, that poverty turned even children into thieves. Capítulo 3. The envelope and the perfect trap. The library smelled of old leather, pipe tobacco that no one had smoked for years, and that special dust that only collects in places where books outnumber people. Lily entered with silent steps, carrying a duster and a microfiber cloth. Her first instinct was to look towards the armchair. Mr. Sullivan was there, exactly as she had seen him an hour ago, motionless, his eyes closed, his breathing barely perceptible. Asleep, or so it seemed. Lily felt momentary relief. If he was asleep, she could work quickly and leave without disturbing him. She started with the farthest shelves, carefully dusting between the leather-bound volumes. Philosophy, history, economic treatises that he had probably never read. Every movement was calculated, silent, precise. But then she saw it. The envelope. It was on the side table, next to the glass of whiskey and an unlit reading lamp. The manila paper contrasted against the dark wood. And inside, Lily froze. Bills. Lots of bills. From where she was, she could see the purple edge of the $50 bills. No, wait, they were 100s. But there were so many. Her heart started to beat faster. $5,000, she quickly calculated. Maybe more. A figure that for Mr. Sullivan was probably insignificant. Change. Pocket money. But for her, $5,000 would pay 3 months' rent, buy winter clothes for Sophie, pay off the debt at the pharmacy, give her, for the first time in 2 years, the possibility of sleeping without that constant pressure in her chest, that anguish that woke her up at 3 in the morning, wondering how they would survive another month. The temptation was like a poisonous whisper. No one would know. He's asleep. Just a few bills. He wouldn't even notice. But Lily closed her eyes tightly. No, she was not that person. Tom had always told her that poverty did not justify losing dignity, that they might have nothing in their pockets, but as long as they maintained their honor, they could look at themselves in the mirror. She took a deep breath and returned to her work, deliberately turning her back on the envelope. She did not know that, from the armchair, Alex Sullivan had been watching her through his half-closed eyelids. Watching, waiting, and now, slightly disappointed, because she had resisted. But the final test still remained. The girl. Capítulo 4. A small presence. Sophie Diaz was 7 years old and had a heart too big for her. Small body. Sitting on the first-floor sofa, she swung her legs that did not reach the floor. She wore a second-hand dress that was a little too big, bought at a flea market. Her shoes, worn at the toes, were the only ones she had. Her coat, the only one she owned, was too thin for the New York winter, but it was what she had. On her lap, she held her most precious treasure, a small doll, the size of her hand. Her name was Moon. She had yellow wool hair, a faded blue dress, and one of her arms had been sewn so many times that she looked like a small Frankenstein's monster. It was the only thing she had left of her father. Tom had bought that doll at a fair, a week before the accident. "For my princess," he had said, with that huge smile that lit up his tired face after 12 hours of work. Sophie stroked Moon's hair and looked around. Mr. Sullivan's house was enormous, bigger than the entire building where they lived. The walls were covered with pictures in gold frames. The furniture shone. Everything smelled clean, and something else, something Sophie couldn't identify, but that made her feel small and inadequate. She missed her home, her bed, her school, but most of all, she missed when her dad was still alive and things were easier. A noise from the second floor caught her attention. Her mother was working up there. Sophie knew that sound, the duster gently hitting the shelves, the cloth rubbing the surfaces, and suddenly, Sophie had a terrible idea. What if her mom needed help? What if there was too much work and she got too tired and the gentleman got angry? Her mother had told her not to move, to stay still. But Sophie looked at Moon. "What would you do?" she whispered to the doll. Moon, of course, did not answer, but Sophie knew what her dad would have said. When someone you love needs help, you help. Always. Carefully, she left her backpack on the sofa. She stood up, putting Moon in the pocket of her dress, and walked towards the stairs. Each marble step seemed enormous under her small feet. The old wood creaked softly. Sophie went up slowly, holding her breath. When she reached the second floor, she saw the library door ajar. Inside, her mother was cleaning in silence, moving with the precision of someone afraid to make noise. And in the armchair, motionless as a statue, was Mr. Sullivan. Sophie observed him from the door. He was an old man, very old. His skin was pale, almost transparent. His hands seemed fragile on the armrests. And then Sophie noticed something that made her heart sink. The man was trembling, just a little, an almost imperceptible tremor in his fingers. He was cold. Without thinking, without calculating consequences, Sophie entered the library. Lily was facing away, cleaning a tall shelf. Mr. Sullivan remained motionless, and Sophie, with her 7-year-old heart and infinite kindness, approached the man who was pretending to sleep. Alex felt the small footsteps approaching. He's coming now, he thought bitterly. He's coming for the money. But then a tiny hand touched his arm. "Sir?" A child's voice whispered, full of genuine concern. "Are you okay?" Alex almost opened his eyes from the shock. Was she asking him if he was okay? No one asked him that. No one in decades. He kept his eyes closed, but he felt the girl observing him. He could hear her small, quick breathing. And then something happened that Alex Sullivan would never have imagined. The girl took off her coat, her thin coat, clearly insufficient, still damp from the rain, and with infinite care she placed it over the old man's legs. "He is cold," Sophie murmured to herself. Poor thing. Alex felt the minimal weight of the fabric on his legs. He felt the cold dampness passing through his pants, and something inside him, something that had been frozen for decades, began to crack. But the girl was not finished. Capítulo 5. The Invisible Gestures. Sophie looked at the old man with the same attention with which she cared for Moon when her arm came unstitched. Mr. Sullivan seemed very alone. Even asleep, his face had a sadness that she could feel without fully understanding. Her gaze swept across the side table. The manila paper envelope was there, about to fall. A small movement, a draft, and it would tumble to the floor. Sophie stretched out her small hand and, very carefully, pushed the envelope towards the center of the table. "That way it won't fall," she whispered. She didn't look inside. She wasn't interested in what was there. For her, it was just something important of the gentleman that needed to be safe. On the floor, next to the armchair, lay a fallen leather notebook. Handwritten pages peeked out in disarray. Sophie picked it up carefully, as if it was something precious and fragile. It was, although she didn't know it. It was the diary where Alex had written his darkest thoughts, his theories about human evil, his resentments for 50 years. Sophie wiped the cover with the sleeve of her dress and placed it on the table next to the envelope. Then she stepped back. She didn't want to disturb the gentleman. She just wanted him to be okay. She headed to a corner of the library, where there was a small wooden bench next to the window. She sat there, hugging herself. Without the coat, the afternoon cold cut through her. Goosebumps covered her arms. Her teeth began to chatter softly, but she didn't say anything. She didn't want her mum to have problems. From the armchair, Alex Sullivan was experiencing something he hadn't felt in longer than he could remember. Shame. Deep, burning, unbearable shame. He had prepared a trap. He had judged this girl before knowing her. He had assumed the worst of her mother, of all humanity. And she had seen him as a human being, not as a test, not as an opportunity, as someone who was cold and needed help. She had taken the only thing she had, an insufficient coat, probably the only one she owned, and given it to him. And now she was trembling silently in that corner, enduring the cold with a dignity that made all of Alex's fortunes seem small. The old man felt something warm run down his cheeks. Tears. He hadn't cried since his mother's funeral, 40 years ago, but now he was crying. For all the lost years, for all the accumulated distrust, for all the times he had seen evil where perhaps there was only need, and for the first time in decades, Alex Sullivan wondered if he had been wrong. Capítulo 6. Lily's return. Lily finished cleaning the last shelf and turned, satisfied with her work. Then she saw her. Sophie. Her daughter was in the library. Panic shot through her chest like lightning. "Sophie!" she whispered urgently, running towards her. "What are you doing here? I told you not to come up." Sophie looked at her with wide, scared eyes. "Mommy, I just—" Lily took her arm, immediately noticing that the girl was not wearing her coat. "Where is your coat? Sophie, what have you done?" Her eyes followed the direction of her daughter's gaze, and she saw with absolute horror Sophie's coat on Mr. Sullivan's legs. Lily's heart stopped. No, 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 no. The gentleman was awake now, sitting upright in the armchair, looking at them with an expression Lily couldn't decipher. "Mr. Sullivan, I am so sorry." The words came out jumbled, desperate. "I told her not to come up. I told her to stay downstairs. I don't know what happened." Alex raised a hand, silencing her. When he spoke, his voice sounded strange, hoarse, as if he hadn't used it in a long time. "This coat," he pointed to the garment on his legs, "has stained my armchair." Lily felt the world falling apart. "Sir, please, it's wet. It has left a mark on the Italian leather." Alex's eyes were cold, calculating. "This armchair costs more than your 3-month salary. The repair, the specialized cleaning, will cost at least $500. $500. Lily felt her knees weaken. She didn't have $500. She didn't even have 100. "Mr. Sullivan," her voice broke. "Please, I will work for free, as long as necessary. Just please don't fire my daughter from the job. I mean, don't fire me." Tears began to fall. "We have nowhere to go if I lose this job." Lily knelt down. In that moment, all her dignity, all her pride evaporated before the terror of being left with nothing. "Please, I will do anything, just don't leave us with nothing." Sophie watched the scene with wide eyes, understanding that she had done something terrible without knowing exactly what. She started crying too. "Mommy, I'm sorry. I just wanted the gentleman not to be cold." Alex looked at both of them, the mother kneeling, pleading, the daughter crying, confused for having tried to help, and that thin coat, still on his legs, that smelled of cheap detergent and pure goodness. The old man stood up slowly. Lily flinched, expecting the worst. But then Sophie did something no one expected. Capítulo 7. The most valuable gift. With tears rolling down her cheeks, Sophie put her hand into the pocket of her dress. She took out Moon, her doll, her treasure, her last link to her father. She walked towards Alex with trembling steps. "Sir," her voice was barely a whisper, "we don't want you to be angry with my mum." She held out the doll to him. "Her name is Moon. She was my dad's. He gave her to me before he went to heaven." Sophie's hand trembled. "You can keep her. Please, I know she's not worth $500, but she's the most important thing I have. Please, don't hurt my mum." Alex Sullivan looked at the doll. A small, worn thing, an arm clumsily mended with thread of different colors, the dress faded, the wool hair unraveling. To anyone, it was worthless. To this girl, it was everything. And she was offering it, without hesitation, to protect her mother. Something inside Alex definitively broke. 75 years of cynicism, of suspicion, of tests designed to confirm human evil. It all collapsed before a doll named Moon and a girl willing to give away the only thing she had. The old man slowly sat down in the armchair. Tears now flowed freely down his wrinkled face. His voice broke. "I was not asleep." Lily looked at him confused. "Sir?" "I was not asleep." Alex pointed to the envelope on the table. "It was a test. A proof. I left that money there on purpose. Silence filled. The library. I've been doing this for years. With every employee, every visitor, I wanted to prove that everyone steals, that everyone is corrupt, that kindness does not exist. He looked at Sophie, who was still offering the doll with her small hands. But your daughter, Alex's voice trembled. Your daughter saw I was cold and gave me her coat. She saw the envelope about to fall and put it back. She saw my notebook on the floor and picked it up. He took the doll from Sophie's hands with a reverence he normally reserved for priceless objects. And now she offers me the most precious thing she owns, not for money, not for selfishness, but out of love for her mother. Alex stood up and walked towards the table. He took the envelope. He handed it to Lily. $5,000, they are yours. Lily looked at him without understanding. What? I've spent 50 years looking for evil in people, and your daughter has just taught me something that all my money could never buy. He pushed the envelope into Lily's trembling hands. That kindness exists, and that the richest heart can be in the emptiest pocket. Lily looked at the money without daring to touch it. Sir, I can't. You can, and you will. Alex knelt in front of Sophie, getting down to her eye level. And you, little one, never ever give away your moon. This doll is worth more than everything I own. He carefully returned the doll to her. But you have given me a lesson I will not forget. Will you? Allow me to be your friend. Sophie nodded, confused but relieved. Alex Sullivan, the man who trusted no one, who had spent decades building walls around his heart, smiled. For the first time in 50 years, he truly smiled. And in that moment, in that cold, rainy library, something new began. Something that would change 3 lives forever. Capítulo 8. The days that followed. On Monday morning, Lily arrived at the mansion with her heart still racing. She hadn't slept well. The $5,000 were hidden under her mattress, wrapped in a plastic bag. Part of her was still expecting Mr. Sullivan to change his mind, to demand their return. But when she entered, she found him waiting for her in the kitchen, not in his library, not in his room. In the kitchen, he had brewed coffee. Good morning, Lily. His voice was different, softer. I thought you might want a coffee before starting. Lily didn't know what to say. Over the next few weeks, something strange began to happen at the Sullivan mansion. Alex began to talk to Lily, not orders, not cold instructions, real conversations. He asked her about Sophie, about her life, about her dreams, and he listened. He really listened. One Friday afternoon, when Lily mentioned that Sophie was struggling with math at school, Alex paused. Bring her tomorrow after school. I can help her. Sir, before dedicating myself to business, I studied engineering. Math is something I still remember. And so it began. Every afternoon after school, Sophie arrived at the mansion. At first shy, afraid to bother, but Alex prepared hot chocolate and cookies. He cleared a table in the library, and with infinite patience that no one would have imagined in him, he taught her fractions, geometry, simple equations. It's not about memorizing, Sophie. It's about understanding. Math is a language, and like all languages, you just need to learn how to speak it. Sophie looked at him with growing admiration. This old man, who had scared her so much at first, was kind. He was patient, and when she finally solved a problem by herself, his eyes lit up in a way that made her feel important. One afternoon, while they were working on a difficult division problem, Sophie looked up. Mr. Sullivan, do you have children? The question fell like a stone in quiet water. Alex was silent for a long moment. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter. They are adults now. Do they come to visit you? Not much. They are busy with their lives. Sophie frowned. That's sad. If I had a dad, I would visit him every day. Something in Alex's chest tightened. I would have wanted that too, little one. Sophie took his hand with her small fingers. But now you have me. I come every day. Alex squeezed that tiny hand, feeling richer than he had ever been in his life. Capítulo 9. The silent transformation. Months passed. Winter gave way to spring, and with it, the Sullivan mansion began to transform. The curtains, which had been closed for years, were opened. Sunlight poured into rooms that had lived in permanent dimness. Alex hired a gardener to revive the abandoned garden. Lily suggested planting flowers. Sophie chose red and yellow tulips. On weekends, when Lily finished her work, The three of them sat in the garden. Alex made lemonade. Sophie ran among the freshly pruned rose bushes. Lily, for the first time in years, allowed herself to rest. "I never had a garden," Lily commented one afternoon. "We always lived in small apartments. This garden is as much yours as it is mine now," Alex replied. "In fact, it is more so. I had abandoned it. You brought it back to life." But not everything was easy. Alex's children began to notice the changes. Rick, the eldest, showed up unannounced one Tuesday afternoon. He arrived in his black Mercedes, wearing a designer suit and an expression of permanent impatience. "Father, we need to talk." They entered the office. Rick closed the door. "Is it true that you gave the maid $5,000? Alex stared at him. "It is true." "Have you gone crazy? Do you know how many times you have denied me loans?" "You didn't need loans, Rick. You needed discipline, and you never offered me anything in return but excuses." Rick clenched his fists. "That woman and her daughter are manipulating you. That woman and her daughter saved my life. They are robbing you." "No, son." Alex's voice was calm but firm. "You and your sister robbed me of years of solitude. When you stopped visiting me, Lily and Sophie gave me back something I thought I had lost, reasons to wake up every morning." Rick left furious, making the door vibrate as he closed it. But Alex was not fazed. For the first time in decades, he knew exactly what to value and what not to. Capítulo 10. The Small Miracles. One morning in May, Alex woke up with an idea. He found Lily in the kitchen making breakfast. "Lily, I want to ask you something. About Sophie." Lily looked at him attentively. "What school would she like if she could choose any?" "Mr. Sullivan." "Answer without worrying about the money." "Which one?" Lily swallowed. "There is a private school in Long Island, St. Catherine's. They say it's excellent, that the children really learn, that the teachers care." Her voice trailed off. "But it costs more than I earn in 6 months. Sophie will start there in September." "You can't do that." "I can and I will." Alex smiled. "That girl gave me her doll to protect you. The least I can do is make sure she has the best education possible." Lily started to cry. Not from sadness, from pure, overwhelming gratitude. "Mr. Sullivan, I don't know how to thank you. By being happy. That is all the gratitude I need." But Alex did not stop there. He paid all of Lily's debts, the back rent, the medical bills, the small loans she had taken from friends. He tripled her salary, and when Lily protested, he simply said, "It is not charity. It is justice. You have worked twice as hard as anyone. You have given more than I asked, and you deserve to be valued." One afternoon, as Sophie was doing her homework in the library, she looked up at Alex. "Mr. Sullivan, can I ask you something?" "Always, little one." "Why are you so good to us?" Alex put down his book. "Because you taught me that I was wrong. For many years I thought that all people only wanted to take advantage of me. I closed my heart, and I became miserable." He took Sophie's hand. "But you gave me your coat when you were cold. You took care of me without expecting anything in return, and you reminded me that kindness exists. You are not taking anything from me, Sophie. You are giving me everything back." Sophie smiled. "Then we are true friends, the best friends I've ever had." And for the first time in half a century, Alex Sullivan knew what it meant to have a real family. Not by blood, but by choice. Capítulo 11. The Time That Does Not Wait. The years passed with a speed that surprised everyone. Sophie grew up, from a shy 7-year-old girl to a brilliant 14-year-old teenager, then 15, 16, 17. St. Catherine's School turned out to be perfect for her. Not only did she learn math and science, but she discovered a passion for helping others. She participated in volunteer programs. She taught reading to children in disadvantaged neighborhoods. Alex watched her with a pride that surpassed anything he had felt for his own children. "You are going to change the world, little one," he told her. "I learned it from you, Grandpa Alex," because that was what she had started to call him, Grandpa. And every time she did, Alex felt his heart grow a little more. Lily also prospered. With a stable salary and no debts she was able to save. Alex helped her enroll in night courses. She studied administration. She learned accounting. "I don't want to be just an employee all my life," she confessed one night. "I want Sophie to see that it is possible to improve, to grow." "You are already more than an employee, Lily. You are family." But time, which had been generous in happiness, began to take its toll. Alex turned 80, then 82, 85. His body, once strong, began to weaken. He needed a cane to walk. His hands trembled when holding his coffee. His sight, once sharp, became blurry, but his mind remained clear, and his heart fuller than ever. One autumn afternoon, when Sophie was 17, Alex called her to the ETY library. "Sophie, I need to talk to you about something important." She sat in front of him, concerned by his serious tone. "What's wrong, Grandpa?" "I'm getting old. It's inevitable. And when my time comes, I want you to know that these last 10 years have been the happiest of my life." "Grandpa, don't talk like that. Let me finish." He smiled tenderly. "I've made arrangements. My lawyer has clear instructions. When I am no longer here, you and your mother will be taken care of. We don't need anything. I know you don't need it, but I want to give it. Because you gave me something infinitely more valuable. You gave me love. You gave me family. You gave me reasons to live." Sophie hugged the old man, feeling his fragile bones press against her. "You also gave us everything, Grandpa. You gave us hope when we had none." Alex stroked her hair, now long and cared for, so different from those messy curls when she was 7. "Promise me something, little one. Anything. Promise. Me that you will use what I give you to help others, just like you helped me. I promise." And Sophie kept that promise even before it was necessary. Winter arrived with early snow that year, covering New York with a white silence. Alex turned 87 in December. The party was small but warm. Lily baked his favorite chocolate cake. Sophie gave him a frame with a photo of the 3 of them in the garden from the previous summer. "This is my true fortune," Alex said, holding the frame with trembling hands. "It is not in banks or properties. It is here with you." His eyes filled with tears. "The last 10 years have been the happiest of my life. It all started because a little girl gave me her coat when I was cold. But everyone knew that time was running out. Visits to Dr. Williams became weekly. 'Your heart is very weak,' the doctor said honestly. 'Months, perhaps weeks. I want to be home when the time comes,' Alex replied calmly. 'In my library, with my family.' It was then that Rick and Ellen appeared after years of absence. They arrived in their luxurious cars unannounced on a Tuesday. "Father, you should be in a hospital," Rick insisted, "not here with strangers." Alex's gaze hardened. "Strangers? Where were you on my birthday, on Christmas, during the last 10 years? His voice rose slightly. "Lily comes every day. She takes care of me. She keeps me company. Sophie comes after school, does her homework here, reads poetry to me. They are my family. You are visitors who show up when you smell money or death." "That woman has manipulated you," Ellen accused, "to change your will." "My will is already changed. I did it 5 years ago and I update it every year." The silence was cutting. Rick and Ellen stayed that night, but the atmosphere was tense. The next morning they left without properly saying goodbye. "They will come back for the funeral," Alex murmured, watching them leave. "And that's fine. At least I know the truth." Days later, on a full moon night, Alex called Mr. James, his lawyer. "I've brought the final documents," the 60-year-old man said, sitting in the library. "Are you sure about this? Your children might contest. Let them try." Alex signed each page with determination. "I have medical certificates of my mental capacity, and I have my reasons. They are unconventional reasons. They are the right reasons. My children will have enough to live well, but not the complete fortune because they never understood its value. Lily deserves security after 10 years of honest work. And Sophie, she taught me that kindness exists." Lily and Sophie knew nothing of this. Alex wanted it to be a surprise. The last days of January were peaceful and full of love. A medical bed was installed in the library so Alex could see the snowy garden from the window. Sophie came every afternoon after school and read to him Neruda, Garcia Marquez, Don Quixote. "I like your voice," Alex said with his eyes closed. "It gives me peace." Lily prepared hot soups and sat next to him for hours, holding his hand without speaking. One afternoon, Alex called Sophie. "I have something for you. I want you to open it now, with me here." From a drawer he took out a package wrapped in tissue paper. Sophie carefully unwrapped it and gasped. It was Moon, but transformed. The dress was new, of bright blue silk. Her hair was perfectly styled, and the arm that had been sewn so many times was now covered in fine gold that shone under. The light. "Grandpa," Sophie whispered, tears flowing freely. "When you offered me Moon 10 years ago, you gave me the most valuable thing you had. I wanted to give her back to you just as valuable. That gold represents every time your father sowed her with love, every time you chose to give instead of keep." He took Sophie's small hands in his. "Never sell her. Not for the gold, but for what she represents. I never will. I promise. I know, little one, because you understand that true. Value is not in the gold. It is in the love." That night, Alex slept soundly for the first time in weeks, and 3 days later, on a quiet February morning, as the first light of dawn tinted the snowy garden pink, Alex Sullivan closed his eyes for the last time. Lily held one of his hands. Sophie held the other. His face was peaceful, a small smile on his lips. The last thing he felt was pure and unconditional love, and in his final thoughts, he saw again a 7-year-old girl taking off her thin coat to cover an unknown old man who was pretending to sleep. Capítulo 13. The Will. The reading of the will took place a week after the funeral in Mr. James's office. The office was elegant but sober, with shelves full of legal books and a large window overlooking Times Square. Outside, New York continued its frantic pace, unaware of the drama about to unfold inside. Rick and Ellen arrived with their lawyers, dressed in black, but with expressions more of expectation than of mourning. They sat on one side of the conference table, confident, almost arrogant. Lily and Sophie arrived together, holding hands. They wore simple black clothes. Their eyes were still swollen from crying. They had not slept well since Alex died. The house felt empty without him, without his soft laughter, without his warm presence. Mr. James, with his reading glasses and impeccable grey suit, opened the envelope sealed with Alex's wax. "We will proceed with the reading of the last will and testament of Mr. Alex Sullivan, dated January 20th of this year." He cleared his throat and began to read in a professional and clear voice. "I, Alex Sullivan, in full use of my mental faculties, certified by Dr. Michael Williams, dispose of my assets as follows." Rick leaned forward, anxious. "To my son, Rick Sullivan, I leave the amount of $100,000, tax-free." Rick frowned, but said nothing yet. "To my daughter, Ellen Sullivan, I leave the same amount, $100,000, tax-free." Ellen opened her mouth, outraged. "That's all? $100,000 after being his daughter for 55 years? Mr. James raised a hand, asking for silence. "Please allow me to continue." He looked down at the document and continued reading. "To Lily Diaz, who for 10 years treated me with dignity, respect, and genuine affection, I leave the amount of $500,000, tax-free, in addition to the ownership of the apartment where she currently resides with her daughter, completely paid for and in her name." Lily gasped, bringing her hand to her mouth. "No, this can't be. This is absurd." Rick stood up abruptly. $500,000 to the maid. "Mr. Sullivan, sit down, or I will have to ask you to leave the room," Mr. James said firmly. "I am not finished yet." Rick sat down, but his face was red with fury. The lawyer continued. "The rest of my estate, which includes this mansion, all my investments, additional properties, bank accounts, and various funds, valued at approximately $12 million, will be destined for the creation of the Moon Sullivan Foundation." Sophie looked up, surprised to hear that name. "This foundation will be managed by a board of 5 members, including Mr. James Ruiz as president. However, the executive director and principal beneficiary will be Sophie Diaz, starting from her 18th birthday, which will occur in 6 months." The silence in the room was absolute. Only the tick-tock of the antique clock on the wall could be heard. "Sophie will receive a monthly stipend of $10,000 for her personal expenses and education until she turns 25, at which time she will assume full administrative control of the foundation and all its resources." Mr. James paused and looked over his glasses. "The goal of the Moon Sullivan Foundation will be to provide free education, decent housing, and comprehensive support to families in vulnerable economic situations, with special emphasis on single mothers and their children." Ellen was livid, trembling with rage. "We are going to contest this. It's crazy. That money is ours by right of blood." Her lawyer nodded, taking notes quickly. Mr. James closed the will and pulled out another document. Anticipating exactly that reaction, Mr. Sullivan left a personal letter. Would you like me to read it aloud, or would you prefer to read it yourselves? Read it, Rick demanded through gritted teeth. The lawyer unfolded the letter. Immediately recognizing Alex's trembling but clear handwriting, he began to read. To my children Rick and Ellen, if you are listening to this letter, it means you are considering contesting my will. I know you well. It was predictable. I leave you $100,000 each. It is enough money to start over, to invest wisely, to build something of your own. But I do not leave you my complete fortune, and I have my reasons. During the last 30 years of my life, you visited me fewer than 20 times. Each visit was brief, uncomfortable, and usually ended with a request for money. You never asked how I was. You never stayed for dinner. You never called me just to check on me. Lily, on the other hand, came every day for 10 years. She prepared meals for me with love. She made sure I took my medicine. She sat with me on the long nights when the silence was unbearable. She treated me like a human being, not like a bank account. And Sophie taught me the most important lesson of my life. When I was 75, I was convinced that all people steal if they have the chance. I prepared a test, leaving money in plain sight to prove it. But Sophie, a 7-year-old girl who had nothing, saw I was cold and gave me her only coat. She saw my money about to fall and put it back. She saw my notebook on the floor and picked it up. And when she thought her mother was in trouble, she offered me her doll Moon, the most precious thing she had, to protect her. If there is anyone in this world who deserves to use money to build something good, it is her. I have lived 87 years. I spent the first 75 alone, rich but deeply miserable. The last 12 years I spent with Lily and Sophie, and they were the only ones that were truly worthwhile. You can contest this will if you wish. You have that legal right, but know that I have taken every precaution. Medical certificates, witnesses, exhaustive documentation, and morally, you already lost. Enough time away from me when I was alive. Don't waste more in court now that I have died. I wish you the best, truly, but my fortune will go where it can make the biggest difference. With sadness, but with clarity, Alex Sullivan. Mr. James slowly folded the letter. Rick and Ellen looked at each other. Their lawyers murmured among themselves, assessing options. They knew they could fight, that they had legal arguments. But the letter had eliminated any moral argument they might have. And fighting would mean years in court, astronomical legal expenses, and public humiliation when the story came to light. They stood up without saying a word and left the office, their lawyers following them. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Lily was crying silently, tears running down her cheeks. Sophie held Moon against her chest, still processing what she had just heard. Ms. Diaz, Mr. James said, addressing Sophie directly, your grandfather left one last specific instruction for you. He handed her a small envelope, made of cream paper sealed with red wax. Sophie opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter and an old black-and-white photograph. In the photo, a young Alex, perhaps 30 years old, held a baby in his arms. His smile was radiant. On the back, in faded ink, it said, "My son Rick, 1955, my greatest joy." Sophie looked at the photo and then began to read the letter. Dear Sophie, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. But I want you to know something important. When you look at this photograph, you will see that I too was once the father of a baby. I loved him with all my heart. I had dreams for him, hopes, but at some point, money came between us. I let business be more important than hugs, that meetings were more important than family dinners, and when I wanted to fix it, it was already too late. The distance had become an abyss. Don't let that happen to you. The money I have left you is just a tool. Use it to build, not to separate. Use it to help just like you helped me. Always remember who you are. When I was cold, you gave me your coat. When you thought your mother was in trouble, you offered me your most precious treasure. That generosity, that kindness, that unconditional love, that is who you are. Never lose it, no matter how much money you have. Moon was restored by the best artisan in America. The gold on her arm is real, 24 karat, but her true value is not in the gold. It is in what she represents, that when you had nothing, you gave everything. Live with that heart, little one, and make the world better. With all my love, now and always, your Grandpa Alex. P.S. I have seen your soul. It is beautiful. Don't let anything change it. Sophie hugged the letter to her chest and cried. She cried for the grandfather she had lost, for the father she never knew, for all the years of struggle that her mother had endured. But she also cried with gratitude. And in that moment, hugged by Lily, holding Moon in one hand and the letter in the other, Sophie Diaz knew exactly what to do with the gift Alex had left her. Capítulo 14. Moon's Legacy. 6 months later, on a sunny August afternoon, Sophie turned 18. There was no big party, just a small celebration in the apartment that now belonged to them completely, debt-free, fear-free. But the next day, something extraordinary happened. The Moon Sullivan Foundation officially opened its doors in Alex's old mansion. The transformation had taken months of work. The library, where a 7-year-old girl had covered an old man with her coat, was now a bright classroom with new tables and shelves full of donated books. The formal dining room had become a tutoring space, the main living room a play area for small children. The garden, where they had planted red and yellow tulips, now had swings, a playground, and picnic tables where families could eat together. The industrial kitchen that Lily had suggested installing fed 100 families every week with hot, nutritious meals. Sophie did not live in the mansion. That would have gone against everything Alex had taught her. Instead, she had turned every inch of the property into a community center, a place of hope, a refuge for those who had none. She and Lily lived in their paid-for apartment, and Sophie attended NYU, studying social work with fierce determination. Every dollar of the foundation was carefully invested in helping others. Full educational scholarships for children in poverty, food programs for vulnerable families, free legal advice for single mothers facing eviction or employment issues, temporary housing for homeless families while they found permanent solutions, job training workshops to help people find dignified employment. A year after Alex's death, the New York Times published a front-page article about the foundation. The reporter, a woman named Carla Jones, had spent weeks researching the story. She interviewed Sophie in the transformed library, surrounded by children doing their homework. "Why Moon?" Carla asked, her recorder between them. "Why that name for the foundation?" Sophie smiled and pulled the doll out of her purse. She carried her with her always, like a talisman. "When I was 7, this doll was the only thing of value I owned. It was a gift from my father before he died. My grandpa Alex gave her back to me. Well, he wasn't my grandpa by blood, but he was my grandpa in everything that mattered." She showed the gold arm that shone under the light. "One day I thought my mom was in trouble. I offered Moon to my grandpa to protect her. I didn't know he was a millionaire. I didn't know he was testing me. I just knew my mom needed help." Her voice filled with emotion. "He taught me that true value is not in what you own, but in what you are willing to give. This gold represents every time someone fixes something broken with love. My father sewed this arm when it came unstitched. My grandpa Alex covered it in gold. But the true treasure is the lesson." "What lesson?" Sophie looked directly at the photographer's camera. "That when you see someone cold, you give them your coat, even if it's the only one you have, because true wealth is not in your pocket, it is in your heart." The article, titled "The Girl Who Gave Her Coat and Inherited a Fortune to Share," went viral in America. Donations began to arrive from across the country. People who had read Alex and Sophie's story wanted to contribute. Business owners offered their services pro bono. Volunteers showed up to help. The foundation grew faster than Sophie had imagined. In 2 years, it opened a second headquarters in Los Angeles, then in Chicago, then in Miami. It helped thousands of families. It changed thousands of lives. But Sophie never forgot the origin. She never lost sight of why the foundation existed. Every year, on the anniversary of Alex's death, she and Lily visited his grave. In the Greenwood Cemetery, they brought red and yellow tulips, his favorite flowers, and Sophie always left a handwritten note. The one for the 5th anniversary said, "Dear Grandpa Alex, 5 years have passed without you. The world is emptier without your laugh. But your legacy grows every day." This year, the Moon Sullivan Foundation helped 3,247 families. 212 children received full scholarships to study. 53 single mothers found dignified employment. 23 families left homelessness. The numbers are important, but more important is what happened yesterday. A 7-year-old girl arrived at the foundation with her mother. They were scared, penniless. They had just been evicted. While I was talking to the mother in my office, the girl noticed that I was cold. It was cold in the room because the heating was low. The girl took off her sweater and put it over my shoulders. Grandpa, in that moment I saw you. I saw your lesson continuing. I saw your love multiplying. I told her your story, about the man who pretended to sleep to prove that people were bad, and about the girl who gave him her coat and proved him wrong. The girl looked at me with huge eyes and said, "So the gentleman learned that you have to be good." Yes, Grandpa. That's exactly what you learned. What you taught me. What I now teach others. The poorest pocket can carry the richest heart. That truth lives in every person we help, in every family that finds hope. Your money built buildings, but your love built something bigger. An infinite chain of kindness. Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for teaching me that it is never too late to change. I miss you every day, but I feel your presence in every act of generosity I see. With eternal love, Sophie. P.S. Moon is still with me, she always will be, and when I have my own children, I will tell them the story of the man who pretended to sleep and the girl who gave him her coat, so that it is never forgotten. Lily, now 44 years old, placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Her eyes were also wet. Your father would be so proud of you. And Grandpa Alex, too. He is proud. I know it. They walked back among the graves, the February sun shining on them with a warmth that defied the winter cold. Sophie held Moon in her hands, a small doll worn by time, with a gold arm that caught the sunlight, a permanent reminder, an eternal lesson. That true wealth is never in what you accumulate, but in what you give when you have nothing else to give. In that moment, if one believed in such things, one could imagine Alex Sullivan smiling from somewhere beyond time, smiling because in the end he had found what he searched for all his life, not in the money he amassed, not in the power he wielded, not in the properties he owned, but in a 7-year-old girl who saw an old man cold, and without thinking twice, without expecting anything in return, without even knowing who she gave him her coat, and with that simple gesture of unconditional love, she taught the richest man in New York the most valuable lesson in the universe, that the human heart, when it is generous, is worth more than all the gold in the world.